Good morning, everyone. Today I'll be talking about the trial concerning Leon Jacob. This was a trial that was held in Houston, Texas, Harris County in 2018, around the months of March, April. The events that took place happened a while back in March 2011 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Of March 2011 was when one of the witnesses gave a testimony saying that around this time was when the events happened. This is about a case of a man, Leon Jacobs, who is being charged for solicitation of murder. The judge overseeing this trial is Judge Jim Wallace of this district county. And the first witness, as the video began, watching the video of the trial, the first witness was Annie Morrison, who was the ex-wife of the defendant, Leon Jacob, and she explained some brutality that occurred with her time with her ex-husband, and some brutalness and some anger and rage that she experienced from the defendant. She noticed that there was times where he would attack her, push her into the counter, and barricade her, and do this not only while she was pregnant, but also in front of her other children, her other child. She had a 3-month-old and a 5-month-old infant. And she testified that she was afraid to leave her husband. She was afraid to leave the defendant because she was scared on how he would react. He was scared that he would kill her. These are threats that he has made, that he would kill her. So long story short, she decides to leave Pittsburgh and go to Chicago. And the defendant makes a phone call to her and threatens her that he will come to Chicago and he will torture her in front of her parents. Actually, in one of the video recordings, we have him saying, "I will torture you in front of your parents. You have no clue where I am. You have no clue when I'm coming." And that was the ending of her testimony. Once again, that was Annie Morrison, who basically described the brutality of the defendant, Leon Jacob, and in a sense, hoping that he gets punished for his actions. The opening statement comes from the defendant team, the counsel of a name that I am unsure of. He's asking for grace in the case of the Leon Jacob trial. He's asking for probation. He's asking the jury for probation, and he lists some conditions that will be included in the probation. Obviously, we all are understanding of the seriousness of the offense, but in belief that he can overcome this mountain and this hole that he put himself in. Some of these probation conditions include ankle monitors, reportings, which your probation officer maybe twice a day, a curfew, jail time, anger management, community service. And also, if there is a violation of this probation, a file of motion to revoke the probation can be claimed. And with that being said, a violation occurs and he can and may very much be sent to the penitentiary. The second witness that came onto the stand was Ashley Locke, who is a probation officer of the county. She just addressed some inside context of probation, letting the jury and the judge know that these are some things that's going to happen as the defendant, Leon Jacob, is placed on probation. We want you to know that he will be punished. He will be severely supervised, and the probation officer will do everything they can to ensure that he doesn't hurt anyone ever again. So the second witness, Ashley Locke, just pretty much went into details on what probation is, what the conditions are, and what they all mean for the defendant. The next witness that came onto the stand was the mother of the defendant, Leon Jacob. The mother's name is Goldie Jacob. She just goes into details on describing the day that her husband died and how helpful Leon was trying to be. As the wife, the mother, she was not there. Miss Golden, she was not there. She was taking her other two kids to school during the time where her husband was having a heart attack. By the time she came back, her husband was dead. But she did explain how helpful Leon was trying to be in the scenario. She did confirm Leon was in a mental hospital at one point, and she did explain a conversation that she had with Leon's ex-wife, Annie, about how Annie was saying that Leon was having some issues. Leon was having suicidal thoughts, suicidal behaviors, anger management issues, and Annie wished for Golden to come and pick up her son. And that is what she did. The next witness that came onto the stand was the little brother of the defendant, Mr. Adam McDaniel Jacob. He was once an engineer, but as of now, he takes law classes at the South Texas College of Law. He basically gives a testimony how he's noticed aggression over the last months from his older brother. He noticed it to a point where, when asked by the attorney, would he allow his children to stay with their uncle, Adam's brother, Leon, Adam stated that he would not let his own children stay with his older brother or be taken care of by his older brother because of the concern of his anger and the concern of his children's safety. As his witness testimony came to a close, the next witness came onto the stand, and this one is a longtime friend of the family. Her name is Haida Thurlow. She's a longtime friend of the Jacobs, and she goes into basically saying how good of a person Leon is. She talks about how there was a time when he took care of them. Leon took care of Thurlow's husband when he had Alzheimer's. He made sure he was safe. He made sure he was fed. And this went on for several years. She believes deep down that Leon is a good person. And she believes that probation is the acceptable punishment because she believes that he can one day learn from these mistakes and make the world a better place. She says with the help of her family and the help of the Jacobs, that he can abide by the conditions of probation. So that was the last witness and the last testimony of the case. Once again, as the trial continues, the judge pronounces the charges made against the defendant, Leon Jacob. Once again, the charges is solicitation of capital murder. The closing statements arise as the defendant's team, once again, they're looking for probation here. And they remind the jury that it is difficult to determine what do you do with the lives of another human being. What do you do? How do you handle this situation? It is a burden that rests on the jury and the defendant's counsel. They want to ensure that they make their decision very carefully. They remind the jury that he has never been convicted of any previous crime. They reminded the jury of the testimony from Thurlow about how he was a good person and how he does have some good in him. He reminds the jury that this is a serious offense and does deserve some type of punishment, but a punishment to where Leon can rehabilitate and be rehabilitated and live on to see another day with the hope that he can change. On the flip side, the district attorneys representing the state believe that there is only one punishment worthy of this offense, and that's being confined in the penitentiary for the defendant's natural-born life. She begins to restate the brutality that the defendant's ex-wife, Annie Morrison, once faced, and to not forget any of the details and the tears that and the pain that the defendant may have brought onto her emotionally, mentally, and physically. The jury eventually came up with a verdict. The jury of the Harris County District finds the defendant, Leon Philip Jacob, guilty of solicited capital murder, with the punishment being assessed as confinement in the institutional division of the Texas Department of Criminal Justice for life. Reading into the textbook, America's Courts and the Criminal Justice System, there is a few things that I was reading that grabbed my attention. For one, I was interested in what chapter 15 of the textbook says about probation. And it says how probation allows the defendant to remain in society while being supervised. It also says that, very specifically, probation is granted if defendant is not likely to commit another crime. And I want to pause there because I believe that is one of the reasons why the defendant, Leon Jacob, did not get probation, is because, in truth, whole honesty, I don't think the jury nor the judge had any reason to believe that his anger management issues would stop. The brutality of his character would cease. I don't think the jury had any reason to believe that. I say that because his actions were behaviors that carried on for continuous time. It wasn't a one-time scenario. These were things that were noticed from several other family members, from an ex-wife. Like, these weren't things where it was a surprise. This became a normal character trait. And I don't think the jury had any reason to believe that he could change, which prevented him from being placed on probation, having the luxury of being placed on probation. The next, also reading the book, America's Court and the Criminal Justice System. In the section of sentencing decisions, there is a line that discusses how some people focus on past behavior, whereas others are focused on the future of his behavior. Some stress that the punishment should fit the crime, whereas others believe the punishment should fit the criminal. Sentencing is a two-step process. The chapter goes on to state, after conviction, the jury decides whether to grant probation or to incarcerate the defendant. Also, the jury must decide, when determining whether to grant probation or to incarcerate the defendant, the jury must decide whether there is a possibility of rehabilitation or not. They must take into account the need to protect the public, and they also must take into account the popular demands of retribution. When taking all of these into account, for the case of Leon Jacob, the court decided it was best for the safety of society and for the punishment of the defendant that he would be sent to the penitentiary for the rest of his natural-born life. Like I said, going back to some of the things where the book says that the jury takes into account is they didn't see a possibility for rehabilitation. They felt that he wasn't safe to the public. And they also felt that the popular belief is that he needs to severely pay for what he has done. The seriousness of the crime is also an important factor, and as we can see, a lot of harm and loss was caused onto the victims by the defendant, making it that much more serious and painful of a crime. Once again, this is the case of the Leon Jacobs trial in Harris County, Houston, Texas. The defendant, Leon Jacob, was found guilty on 2 counts of solicitation of murder with a punishment of confinement in the Texas State Penitentiary. Thank you.